This week, another edition of Critiquing Comics, where we read a comic submitted by its creators and give them advice on how to improve it. This time we discuss Bric-A-Brac, a Christmas action comic for all ages. Adam joins me to critique the comic. First, if you appreciate the work we do on Critiquing Comics and the other Deconstructing Comics shows, we'd love it if you'd support us at patreon.com/deconcomics for as little as $2 a month. Check out our goals and rewards and pledge your support now at patreon.com/deconcomics. This is Tim.
And this is Adam.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Adam in Nagoya. How are you?
I'm all right, Tim. Good and bad things happening right now. It's the Juken season for those people who are not in Japan. That's the season where kids are testing into schools, like private schools and stuff. So my daughter is going through that process right now.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been through that process, the Juken process?
Well, yeah, more or less. A kind of a budget version of it, maybe. But my kids are all past that now.
Right, yeah. So my son went through it a few years ago, trying to get into a private junior high, and then now my daughter's doing it too. So, but we got good news today, so she can kind of relax for the rest of the. I think she's sitting about 4 school exams, and so the first one she got good news from. So. Mm-hmm. So she doesn't have to worry so much about the other ones now.
Okay, so she knows she's got a school to go to.
Exactly, yeah. So.
Okay, all right, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a comic. It's a Christmas-themed comic. It's a little bit late that we're getting to it. It's called Bric-A-Brac, written by Ryan Haack, art by Rafael Sam, letterer and designer Toben Racicot, maybe. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. And another designer, Milton Aguiar. Sorry if I'm butchering these names. And I'm not sure which of those people is coloring the comic, but whoever it is, I think they really know what they're doing color-wise.
Yeah, it's excellent colors. Everything pops. The backgrounds, the foreground really have a nice contrast to them. There's really good, the gradient is it's not like in your face. It's very mild and yeah.
Yeah, and they're not kind of going all over the place and doing completely different colors and different panels. They're keeping it kind of consistent, so you can see a unified page with similar background colors and so forth. So that's something I've learned to look for on coloring.
Yeah, I think it really does a lot to set the mood, and and in some cases it can even sort of, I don't know, it sets the tone of the story in a way too. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very well done.
Yeah. I quite like the art also. It's a little rough in places, but I can see that the artist is very accomplished, the word we often use on this show. Yeah, I think he knows what he's doing. Maybe the inks could have been a little tighter.
Oh, I see what you mean. So when you say rough, you mean actually rough, like sketchy and not like clean lines. Yeah. I think that was definitely an aesthetic choice. And I kind of like it. I like, because even the panel borders themselves are not like clean lines. They're kind of, they're a little bit wobbly and stuff like that. It gives it a very hand-drawn thing in one. I think also it really adds to the whole kind of fast-paced feeling of the book. So, there's a lot of lines that are in there that are really dynamic and like keep the story feeling like it's moving a lot, and I really like that aspect for sure.
Yeah, it feels kind of like a Scotty Young drawn comic. It has that kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, if we're going to get into the artwork, I think that this is a huge compliment, or I mean it as a huge compliment. So what I mean as a big compliment is that he's obviously very good at drawing children, and I think that there's something that is a pet peeve of mine that I often see in comic books, which is that people think that drawing children just means making small adults, and they don't understand that it's all about the proportions, not only proportions of like the body, but proportions of the, on the face itself, making the eyes bigger and lower on the head and making the mouth smaller and all of this kind of stuff to make something look childlike. And a lot of times in a lot of books, when they make children, they just look like these small adults. So they look really horrid, like goblins, they look really nasty. And in this story, he has elves and children and, sugar plum fairies and all of these little small creatures. And it's very clear which ones are children and which are elves and which are, sugar plum fairies and stuff like that, it's a big challenge. I think a less accomplished artist would not have been able to differentiate them, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I can see what you mean. The proportions are not the same across those different types of characters.
Yeah, exactly. And so the children look very childlike. They have these big eyes, and even the way of drawing the eyes is different. They've got a very round shape to them and stuff like that. So I think that this artist definitely is a practiced hand at, there's a lot of different kind of characters in here where, like penguins and dragons and things like that all require, you need to be able to look at it and immediately recognize it as what it is. But at the same time, they're very, very stylized. And, like the dragon, when he's flying by, his eyes are kind of half closed, like he's like this chill, relaxed dragon flying in the sky. And the penguins have this really, kind of goofy, cartoonish beak that's really thin and bent and stuff like that. So I can't state enough how much I like the character design. I think he does a really good job of making all of them look really unique and still have that same style across all the different characters. So
yes, for sure. So the story takes place on Planet Christmas.
Right.
Interesting concept. And a lot of what's on Planet Christmas is kind of based on Nutcracker Suite. The bad guys are nutcrackers. The children are taken care of by sugar plum fairies. There's even a character called Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, I noticed. And I think Tchaikovsky is eating he's serving rat king parts too. So
right, yes.
So there's definitely a lot of influence of the Nutcracker Suite for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now there were times in this comic though that I felt like the world. I mean, there are certainly signifiers of Christmas, but sometimes I felt like there weren't quite enough of them. Did you get that feeling?
Not enough Christmassy things, or
man, some pages are, and other pages it doesn't really feel that way to me.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I felt like that was kind of a good thing because I don't really like Christmassy stuff myself, but I don't like Christmas themed things, and I like movies where the setting happens to be Christmas, but I don't like the ones where it's all Christmassy. I know what you mean though. Like there's some parts that were, I don't know, not even necessarily had to do with Christmas. They were more just like winter themed or something, or
Right. And of course this story seems to be for kids, I would say. And there's a crisis because the Nutcrackers are invading the town, and the kids try to get Father Christmas to help. I was surprised that they used the term Father Christmas because that tends to be used in the UK, and there didn't seem to be much British about this comic. Other than that, the language felt American, the spelling was American, so I'm not sure. It was an interesting choice. So the story I thought was fine. The thing that bothered me a little bit was that I didn't feel like the cliffhanger had enough kind of oomph to it.
Yeah, I agree.
The cliffhanger, Santa, I'm calling him Santa, Father Christmas and his wife have left. The Nutcrackers are trying to get into Santa's fortress. The good guys have snuck into the fortress. Garrett, the kid, and Marie, and I don't know what Marie is. I can't figure out what she's supposed to be.
I think maybe she's a gingerbread person.
Could be. And Marie wants to have a partridge, nice choice, carry a message to the commander to send troops, and Garrett says, no more war. And it's kind of a dramatic moment, but it's not a kind of, oh crap, this is bad moment like you really expect from a cliffhanger.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment. I felt like it was a kind of a weird spot to cut. It was building up to something, and then they should have either gone a little bit further or cut it off a little bit sooner, one or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I would have expected the cliffhanger to be something like, oh no, it's the Nutcrackers, they're breaking in, something like that.
Right.
Because, Garrett and Marie are in Santa's fortress, and the Nutcrackers have been trying to get in. So when they start to succeed, which we don't see in this issue, that would be more what I would expect a cliffhanger to be.
Right. Yeah, I think maybe it was supposed to be that he has some alternative, some way to fix the problem without going to war, obviously, but I don't know if that's enough to get somebody to buy another comic book, especially when they're probably going to be waiting for a year or more for it to come out.
Next Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that they were kickstarting this. There's a page thanking all their supporters.
Right. So just the Kickstarter campaign itself takes, a few months to start, launch, fulfill. And that's assuming they already have all the artwork done for the next book. So I would guess, at least 6 months out, maybe more, for the next book in the series. So.
Mm-hmm. More on Bric-A-Brac coming up. But first, a reminder to join us for 20th Century TV trivia, reviews of The Amazing Spider-Man by Lee and Ditko, and more at patreon.com/deconcomics. If you'd rather give a one-time donation, you can do so via PayPal by sending it to mail@deconstructingcomics.com. We appreciate your support.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarterbin podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarterbin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarterbin podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarterbin Podcast in iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
Regarding the story, I thought that was a really weird choice in the first place to make something themed on Christmas.
Just because it's so seasonal, so confined to one time a year?
Yeah, exactly. And they made it an action story, so it's like it's taking all of the Christmas characters, but it's not like a Christmas feel to it. It's certainly not like a happy, feel-good family movie. Or it's like a not that it's mature at all. It's a very, it's not made for mature audiences. It's definitely made for, for kids, I think. But yeah, it's not like the Happy Elves and stuff like that. It's definitely like a war battle thing. So.
Yeah. Although, based on how it ends, maybe that kind of turns around in the next... apparently this is only going to be 2 issues,
right,
based on what it says at the end. And so maybe, that theme kind of turns around and they, get the Nutcrackers to be nice or something. I don't know. That's kind of what I would expect.
It could be because... the whole time I kept thinking while I was reading this, like, as you mentioned before, it's definitely based on Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite, but the main thing about that is that the Nutcracker was the hero, or he was a good character, and in this it's, there are these bad characters, and so it does make me wonder if maybe this is the backstory of the Nutcracker and how it came to be that he became a hero or something like that. I don't know.
Could be.
But I don't know how they would turn it around that way, but...
Also, apparently, Father Christmas went off to do something. Well, he said I know a safe place, but I have a feeling that he's going to be coming back with something that turns the tide or something.
Well, he did make a mention of, when that magical Christmas snow is on the ground, we'll have more of we'll have more power or something like that. So, and they make this reference to, there's one point where they make a reference to getting the resources from the town when the Nutcrackers first seized the area. And they also talk about, the spirit of Christmas, which is under the ground. So I wonder if there is something like that where they're trying to mine for the spirit of Christmas as this sort of rare resource or something like that.
Mm-hmm. On a different note, I was interested that Donner and Blitzen are female. Because Santa says, we have a long trip today, so I hope you girls are ready.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think, at least in the Christmas movies, isn't Donner the father of Rudolph?
Yeah, I think in the old Rankin Bass stop motion animation of Rudolph, I think he was.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they never really say which ones are which. I always assumed that Vixen was a female, but that was... But I don't know. I never really thought about it. I mean, they all have antlers, but I think maybe all reindeer have antlers. I'm certainly not a...
Oh, boy. Zoology. I'm not sure. I think females have some kind of antlers, maybe not as big as the male antlers.
Yeah.
Although... that's an interesting point, because these female reindeer, Donner and Blitzen, have pretty big antlers, and I'm not sure whether that's accurate or not. I hope the creators have checked on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't really know much about reindeer, to be honest, but yeah, here's a weird little point too that's not really connected to what you're talking about, but there is a little bit of a pet peeve for me, and that is that they are supposed to be, I would assume, at the North Pole, or at least they're looking for the North Pole. So they're close to the North Pole, and there's penguins there. So I mean, obviously they're on Planet Christmas, so
right. Yeah, they're not on Earth as far as it seems like. So yeah, I think that probably doesn't matter. But I know what you're saying. The penguins on Earth are at the South Pole.
Yeah.
Also, kind of a head-scratching moment for me was when they were looking for the North Pole, and he says, "Go east."
Yeah. Now,
wouldn't the North Pole be north?
Well, so I thought that was either brilliant or, I mean, it was. I assume it's a joke.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
But then they were turning right, and so that would take them south.
Yeah. So either this is, Christmas planet Christmas geography that doesn't make any sense, or, I think like once you're actually at the North Pole, then it doesn't matter what direction you go in. You can't really go anywhere. I mean, any direction you go is away from north, right? But I guess when you're going towards north, it's the opposite, right? I don't really know. Now I'm getting myself confused.
Or you could walk in circles around the pole and you're going east or west, but you wouldn't get anywhere.
I guess I only say that because I remember reading once that if you're at the actual, like, true South Pole, the sun doesn't rise in the east and set in the west. It rises and falls all different places. Like, it's, sort of constantly there. So,
well, depending on the season, yeah, if it's summer, it's going to be there all the time. And if it's winter, it's going to be dark.
Yeah. So, but I guess, the way that we're getting really far away from the story here, but the way that our world is, the way that we make our globes, right? Like north and south are like a point with the radians coming away from that. But in terms of east and west, there isn't like a pole where it collects. So east and west are arbitrary. If you're actually on a pole, does that make sense? If you're on the South Pole, there isn't really east and west anymore.
Yeah. Any direction that you would point in a straight line would be the opposite direction.
Yeah, so
north or south, depending on which pole you're at. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, we're getting really off base here.
Yeah. So anyway, I did notice that as well, that they had to turn east to go to the North Pole, and then they turned right, which would have been the wrong direction. So that was a pretty good gag.
So, But yeah, it might very well be Christmas planet geography, and the fact that it's called the North Pole has nothing to do with its location.
Yeah.
Or the direction you go to get there.
Yeah. It may not even be a sphere. It may be something totally different. So then that would make more sense.
Anyway, yeah, so I don't know. We've been plagued with technical problems trying to do this episode, so let's wrap it up. But
Okay.
basically, yeah, I think it's a good comic, especially for kids, and yeah, I hope they can get the second issue out in a timely way.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be honest, when you sent it to me and I saw that it was a Christmas-themed comic book, I didn't think I was going to enjoy it, but I did despite that. And I think that especially the artwork really sold it. This is one comment that I forgot to mention earlier, but this artist has a really, really good sense of motion. And there's some techniques that sort of come from anime, I think. But for example, where the ground sort of curves up into the corner, and it has this really interesting effect where it makes it look like a camera's moving, even though it's a static image. That happens a few times in this. And there's just a lot of really the dynamic poses and things like that create a lot of motion. And so, for something that's a Christmas comic book, I didn't expect that much, polished action kind of stuff. So,
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of the comics that we've seen for critiquing comics have had this art that looks so static. Everything looks frozen. And yeah, this definitely has a feel of movement to it. So yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. So yeah, I recommend this. Even if you're reading it like we are, where you're past Christmas season and getting ready for Easter season, it's still a fun read.
Yeah. Okay. So, listeners, if you would like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read it and talk about it here. So, thanks for listening, and thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Tim.
It turns out that Ryan and Company have actually funded the second issue of Bric-A-Brac already, and by the time you hear this, the third campaign will be complete. Also, they've switched from Kickstarter to Indiegogo. I've linked to their page from the show notes so you can at least check out some of the artwork. You can help the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics, and go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Our theme is from bensound.com. Next week on Deconstructing Comics, Emmett and I continue our look at Jack Kirby's Fourth World Saga, looking at Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, issues 142 through 148. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.